Okay, here are some of the art supplies I use, but I cannot emphasize enough how strongly I feel that you should, on your own, try as many different art supplies as you can and not just use the ones I use because I use them, or any other artist, the ones they use because they use them. Try as many as you can and find the ones that work for you and the art you want to make. Okay, so you do your thing and find your own little way in the art world. All right, so let's take a look at the ones I've been using. All right, so I've used a lot of pens over the years, but I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent into all those. So I'm just going to concentrate on the main pens I've been using in the fairly recent past, starting off with a few different types of felt tip pens or fine liners, pigment liners, whatever people want to call them. In particular, these Pigma Microns, fairly popular pens, and I used these for quite a while. They were, in fact, my first love. I got a job at Michael's in high school, my first real job, and I found these while working there. I used them for quite a while, and I liked them a lot. I started doing my first super detailed drawings with them. They have all sorts of different tip widths, from kind of markery tips all the way down to 005 and all sorts of options. You do have to be a little bit careful with them. If you press too hard, you will damage the tips easily, or if you draw too fast, you can also damage the tips. But they do well for me. They always did well for me. A lot of people complain, like, why does the ink run out so fast? Why does this or that? I always found out they worked well for me, and I always assumed that the people who complained about the ink running out too fast or they getting damaged, I just always assumed that those people were pressing too hard or treating them too roughly. So you do have to be careful, be gentle with them. The finer the tip is, the more gentle you have to be with it. You don't have to press hard at all. But I always like these pens. They are disposable once the ink runs out. I think you're supposed to throw them away, but I have heard of people refilling them. You can pull the tip out and refill it if you want to, but I like these pens. There's also another little variety of these pens called microperm pens. The only time I ever used these was when I drew on my hand for one video. It's a fairly popular video I had. These pens are supposed to be used for drawing on anything really that isn't paper, or that the other variety of pen, just regular Pigma Microns, wouldn't be able to draw on very well. You know, like slippery surfaces, slippery, greasy things, you know, like your skin has weird oils on it. So I use those to draw on my hand, you know, because sometimes when you draw on your hand with regular pens, your pens just like weirdly stop working. I don't know, those Pigma Microperms, Sakura, I don't know what they're called. Anyways, these microperms, those seem to draw on my hand better. You know, your parents always tell you not to draw on your hands, but I did it anyways. Such a rebel. Moving on, these Copic, or some people say Copic. I say Copic. Copic makes a pen, a pigment liner. These all these pens have felt tips. They're just like little felt tips that come out of these little metal nibs. And these are a very similar pen to the Pigma Microns. And to me, you know, a lot of people think, you know, there's like all these, you know, they prefer one or the other. I had a few of these Copic multiliners. I kind of, you know, I bought a few just to try, you know, little different things and stuff. You know, I bought a few just to see how they were, because, you know, they look nice and all this stuff. For me, I think I always kind of preferred the Pigma Microns, but the Copic multiliners are fine. I liked them. They seemed almost identical to the Pigma Microns to me, but I think, I don't know, they seemed like almost the same thing. The one advantage the Copic multiliners had over the Pigma Microns is that they did have a nib one size smaller than the Pigma Microns, that is a 0.03, whereas the Pigma Micron's smallest size was a 0.05. So there's always that. Now, moving on from these Copic multiliners, there's like a deluxe version of the Copic multiliners called a Copic multiliner SP, which was like this crazy version completely made out of metal, aluminum, I believe, which was not disposable, but which, when you run out of ink, I believe you can like replace all the parts. So technically the pen lasts forever. These pens were much more expensive. Maybe not much more, but they're more expensive. And then, you know, like if the nib eventually wears out, which is inevitable if you keep using it, you can replace the nib. And then if it runs out of ink, you can replace the ink cartridge. So depending on the size of the pack you buy, sometimes it comes with a replaceable nib and some ink cartridges. But you can also buy the replaceable nibs and ink cartridges separately. Once again, the smallest size here is a 0.03, and these are quality pens as well. Copic just makes good art supplies, but I never quite accumulated as many of these as I did Pigma Microns, I think. Sometimes, I'm not saying these are better or worse than the Pigma Microns. Sometimes as an artist, you just have little favorites, little things you kind of grow accustomed to, and something you just kind of like for some intangible reason that you can't really describe. And for me, those were Microns for a long time. Until one day, I found these Staedtler pigment liners. I picked one up in the store, and for some reason I liked it, not because of the lines it drew were that much better. The lines seem almost identical to every other felt tip pen, every other fine liner I'd ever picked up. But I liked it because the outside of the pen had this weird rubbery texture. And so I started buying these for a while, and eventually I accumulated a whole bunch of them, and I started using them for a while, and everyone, of course, started realizing that I was using these in my videos all the time, and started asking me, are these your regular pens now? What? Do Pigma Microns, do Pigma Microns suck now? Should we all stop using Pigma Microns? I'm like, people, keep using whatever pens you want. I'll keep using whatever pens I want to use. You keep using whatever pens you want to use. I'm just using these because the outside feels weird and rubbery. But anyways, I started buying these, and they draw lines just the same as all the other pigment liners I've ever used. I don't know, maybe I'm just not as picky as some people when it comes to lines. Some people are always like, describing how like the blacks don't seem as black, or the lines don't seem as crisp. I'm like, I don't know, it all seems the same to me. But I don't know. So I started buying a lot of Staedtlers. Pretty much the only thing I think you have to make sure you figure out is that it says you're using on the fine liners you buy. You just have to make sure it says that you're using archival ink. That's the main thing. That way, it doesn't. Once you draw something and then you put it into, once you put it in your portfolio and you keep it for years and years, the ink doesn't start fading or decaying, or messing up your paper or anything. I think that's the most important thing. Anyways, and then one day, due to a number of external factors, it was actually a long time coming, due to a few other artists I'd seen, dead and alive, I finally bought a set of Rotring repeatographs. Now these are expensive pens, they really are, and for that reason I don't really want to, recommend them to anyone, even though they are exceedingly satisfying to draw with. Just the way they put down ink is just satisfying like nothing else. But since I bought them, I haven't really been drawing with anything else. There are some drawbacks, just like ask anyone who's been using them for a while. There probably is quite a few drawbacks that other pens don't present. Just the maintenance and the upkeep. Sometimes you have to clean them out. These pens have an entirely metal nib and mechanism for releasing ink. There's a metal nib, and inside the metal nib, there's a wire that goes in and out. And when you touch the metal nib to the paper, the wire goes in and releases ink. And because of that, the pen technically should last forever. There's no felt tip to get worn out. And pretty much the only way it could get the only way you should have to replace the nib is if you damage it on your own somehow, like if you drop it on the paper or on the ground or something and it gets bent. There's two types of these Rotrings. There's an isograph and a repeatograph. The repeatograph comes with cartridges pre-filled. You just buy new cartridges and plug them in there, which is slightly lower maintenance, but probably a little bit more expensive. And the isographs come with a little ink reservoir, which you refill manually from little ink bottles. So those are your two options. And I have one isograph right now, and I think 4 repeatographs, and I like them both for different reasons. They're pretty fun. I like these a lot, and pretty much the only downsides of the Rotrings that I've noticed so far is just the maintenance and the upkeep and the price. The price is a big bite to the wallet, but they're super fun to draw with. So those are all the main pens I use. There are a few other random utensils I use to draw with sometimes, like these water brushes. You can put all sorts of random stuff inside of this reservoir as long as it'll flow out of the brush. I think they maybe intended you to put water in here, but I've put ink in here. like UV, black light, fluid, all sorts of stuff. Your imagination, the sky's the limit. It's a lot of fun. I've done it before, sometimes I use this glass dip pen. I've got a video or two featuring this glass dip pen. I'm trying to get a couple of these custom made for me. I'm pretty excited. This is a pen you just dip in ink and then you write on paper with it. That's pretty fun, pretty exciting, and it looks really cool. I recommend that to anyone. It's just plain fun. It's just plain fun. You can get those online or probably in some cool little, flea market or something, or contact your local glass blower. And here we have the esteemable handmade stick dip pen, also made for dipping in ink and then applying to the paper. This was found in the woods in the rough and then sharpened to a point. Custom made by me, by hand. One of a kind. Probably one of the most glorious and versatile tools out there available for the modern artist. Ever. And forever. And then we have the good old ballpoint Bic pen. Don't get too caught up in buying fancy art supplies. And don't think that to make good art, you have to have fancy art supplies. Don't wait to get started on something because you think you have to have good. Don't wait to make art because you have to think you have some fancy pens that you don't have right now. I guarantee there is, either in some drawer in your house or underneath your couch cushions, there is one of these pens somewhere. So grab it and start drawing now. Don't wait. You can do amazing things, and people do amazing things with these pens all the time. I do it sometimes myself. It's a good exercise, okay? Just do it. These pens are all you need. Any pen, anything to put marks on the paper, it's all it takes, okay? Trust me. The tools don't make the art or the artist, okay? And of course, ever since a young age, I've always liked Sharpies, and even now I like these big old ones, a king-size Sharpie, and even a big old Magnum Sharpie. You can't go wrong with. I mean, look at the size of that thing. It's perfect. It's amazing. It's breathtaking. I love it. And even just a nice little classic Sharpie, that's perfect. It takes me back. It takes me back. And of course, there's a lot of discussion over which white pens are best. People use white pens for different things. Personally, I use white pens usually for drawing on top of other ink I've already put down. Some people use white pens for drawing on black paper. I usually use white pens for drawing on ink that I've drawn on white paper. And for me, the Uniball Signo is the best white pen. Some people like the Jelly Roller or the Posca pen. I've tried all these, but the Uniball Signo is just what has worked best for me in the situations in which I used it. You really just have to try as many things as you can in the situations in which you're trying to use them and see what works best for you. Or I guess, watch a video like this and take my word for it if that's good enough for you. I don't know, but I don't know. This is just my experience. That's all I can say. Anyway, so I hope this video was a little bit helpful at all. There are annotation links below each item as I was talking about it to Amazon. They are referral links, and there are links in the description as well. So let me know if you have any questions in the comments, and I'll try to answer them. Thanks for watching, and see you later.